You're tuned in to the Dakota Housing Network on Supertalk 1270 and supertalk1270.com. In-depth discussion and analysis of real estate issues nationwide and those issues unique to our area. Our team of experts includes Joe Sheehan, Greg Larson, Dave Floor, Brian Ritter, and a great variety of guests. The Dakota Housing Network begins now on Supertalk 1270 and supertalk1270.com.
Welcome to the Dakota Housing Network. This is Joe Sheehan, back from forever.
Dave Floor. Yeah, well, I was here last week, so
you
I
were here
didn't feel
last
that
week.
bad.
Yeah, I had a few weeks off or something like that.
Would you?
Yeah. Well, we got Ritter in here, and I don't know if we can even, normally our moniker is, two dumb guys talking to a smart guy, and of course that's definitely going to change today.
Yeah.
And we have to use the word person, and in this case, and for sure, the beauty barometer finally break that out and dust that thing off today.
Yeah, well, that's always broken till
today.
Till today, yeah.
That thing's working like a charm right now. Yeah. As we'll get to our guest here in a minute, but
apparently I'm chopped liver.
Yes, you are, Greg.
Yeah, well, you're definitely one of the company. I mean, yeah. So Greg's over here. He's going to be sharing a mic with me today. But
so this is a very
good to be back at the show. Anyway,
we have a very special episode of two dumb guys asking a smart guy questions because we have three dumb guys asking a smart person questions today.
Right, and the atmosphere in the studio is phenomenal as the beauty barometer rockets. So.
Absolutely. Anyway, we have a guest.
We do, and
if you hadn't figured it out yet.
But first, what we'll do before we get to that, we'll do the quick interest rate update.
What did they do, Joe?
Folks,
tell us, please.
They were going up, way up. Could be.
Stop
might
it.
Be.
Don't say it.
No, they're not out of here. They're getting better again.
Okay, all right.
But today's mortgage market survey from Freddie Mac at 30-year fixed rate mortgage, 3.87%. With a 0.6 discount, and the 15-year fixed rate mortgage 3.11. So they definitely have been trending up. They were we were down 3.68 back in April 30th, April 23rd down 3.6, and then we're talking the 30-year fixed here. So honestly, today, if you called your mortgage loan officer and tried to lock in a rate within the last couple days, they probably were even higher. Could have been higher than that 3.87.
Might have been 4, yeah.
Yeah, because remember, this is an average, and they were better, and then they got worse. Now they're getting better again.
Government rates. Those are conventional rates we're talking about.
Yeah, we're talking about conventional rates.
Yeah. Government rates, FHA insured or RD, they're going to be lower.
They're going to be lower, but they still would have gotten worse.
They would have gotten worse.
Yeah.
We didn't, though. We didn't raise our rates.
Not those folks in North Dakota Housing.
No, that's 3.15.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing since you're back on selling the bonds versus tying to the agency.
Yeah.
To the agency bonds, isn't it? Well, anyway, so what does the market guide have to say about what you should be doing regarding interest rates? Well, they say start today floating. Mortgage bonds are slightly lower this morning as the benchmark 3.5% coupon struggles. Blah, 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 technical stuff. Basically, hey, there was a little economic data this morning, and other weekly initial jobless claims rising by 7,000 to 282,000 and above the 274 expected. The report had little impact on trading, and at 10 a.m., April pending home sales will be released. Oh, what were they?
They were good. I think I have that from Barry.
I was at a track meet.
Yep, I have it from Barry. Nope, that was jobless claims. Home sales were up.
They were up. Okay.
They were. It was a good number.
Which is technically a bad number for bonds, folks.
Yep. They were up. Pending home sales were up 3.4% for the month of April.
So interest rates could be getting worse now as we speak.
Which was much stronger than expectations of 0.8%. So much stronger than what.
U.S. stocks are modestly lower following a decline in overseas markets. The ongoing saga in Greece, coupled with a big drop in the Shanghai Composite, is weighing on prices here in the States. But like I said, the good news of home prices being up. Anytime there's good news for the market or good news for the economy, remember that's not good news normally for mortgage interest rates.
I read an interesting thing that may, the question is when will the Fed raise their rate? Barry Habib from MBS Highway had one of his morning updates this week was about how the consumer price index is updated the year over year, and when you look at this, when it rolls over every month, we get to May and now April, May, those numbers were about the same last year as what they are this year. But now when we get into June and July and August, the CPI was very low last year.
Mm-hmm.
So if the numbers come in higher this summer than what that was, there's going to be this big increase. And he said, look out for the Fed to say we're going to raise rates.
Time to raise rates.
Because inflation is going up year over year.
And that's
something to keep an eye on.
You mean they're going to get back to their job?
Probably.
Okay.
Doing it
Talking
the way
about
they should
inflation?
do it. Yeah.
So this morning, the San Francisco Fed President John Williams says the Fed likely to raise rates later this year and expects above-trend U.S. growth for the rest of 2015 after a weak first quarter. Mortgage market guide still feels a rate hike will likely come more towards the October meeting. So, yeah, here's the deal. There was a great improvement in interest rates the other day, about 100 basis points. Mm-hmm. If you got to decide if you're a teetotaler or a rock climber or hang glider.
Yeah.
If you're a big risk taker, maybe rates are going to get better.
One of those flight suits.
Yeah,
You seen those?
Yep.
Yeah, they jump
there
off.
you go. There's a guy who got really
around.
wrecked on one of those too.
Yeah.
That was on like
so
a real
be
sport.
Careful.
I think Batman invented those.
Yeah, that's what it looks
So,
like.
so if you're somebody, you know how I say this. If you're going to be more angry about a rate going up, lock that sucker in.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah,
we got 1 minute. Dave, why don't you go ahead and take over the show, get our guest introduced, and then we'll come back in the next segment. And we're going to talk about multifamily housing. In other words, if you're renting out there, no renters, no people need to take advantage of that, or an investor, maybe.
So really, we have three single family people here talking to a multifamily. So this is going to be dangerous. But we could get in trouble. Well, we have a guest from the North Dakota Housing Finance Agency. My cohort there, Jennifer Henderson, is the program development director at the Housing Finance Agency. So we are going to talk about the Housing Incentive Fund and rents in North Dakota and other fun stuff, right, Jennifer?
Yep, that sounds good.
All right, sounds good. Jim, are we going to be back?
Yeah.
In about
We
a minute?
are. They're bringing us back.
They're bringing us
Again,
back.
Again, it's always like a miracle every
in
time.
Like 2 minutes or something?
We talk for 15 minutes, and every time they still bring us back.
They keep coming. Okay. Anyway,
and
we'll
after the
see
break.
you after the break. All right.
Song playing on the radio.
Right now it's 66.
Get the traffic and weather information you need anytime on Super Talk 1270 and online at supertalk1270.com.
I do like good music, Jim. All right. Sweet soul music.
Well, thank you for bringing us back, Jim.
Yeah, it's
In the
always a
studio, the
pleasure.
Dakota Housing Network.
Thank
Here.
you.
Dave Floor,
Okay.
you're going to interview Jennifer Henderson.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me.
Gosh, it's nice to finally break out the beauty barometer.
Yeah.
Dust that thing off.
Yeah.
It was getting bad in here.
Well, we had Nancy 2 weeks ago.
I wasn't
then it was
here for
good, but
that.
you weren't here. Yeah.
I wasn't here.
Greg and I
well,
had
that's
the
why
privilege.
things working so good today.
It was working pretty good. Yeah. It was.
We got Doc Frank.
Well, there we go.
Fantastic.
2 weeks in a row. Then we're good. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Take it away, Dave.
You know what? Well, first I started today. Back 3. The Pictorial Chronicler of Americana gave us yet one more image to sum up a special time. Norman Rockwell painted. Let's see, what did he do? He painted Rosie the Riveter. He came up with the thing that was in 1943. It was to do with obviously World War II. This comes from Art Cashin as part of MBS Highway. He says, back in World War II, obviously needed a lot of men to fight the war. And politically correct back then, men were considered more expendable than women, which I think we still are, aren't we?
That it still
Jennifer,
applies.
you would agree
I
with
think
that?
so,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Okay, I thought so, but I wasn't sure. So anyway, Norman Rockwell came up with this because all the men were fighting. What did the women do? They worked in the factories. They built all the stuff that the men could fight with. So, way to go. There we go. This day in 1943. Okay.
Since Jim doesn't have a mic, I'll say it for him. I resemble that remark.
Yes, you do. Okay. All right. Jennifer Henderson, Program Development Director at North Dakota Housing Finance Agency. We're going to talk about let's start off talking with the HIF program, the Housing Incentive Fund. What is this? We hear about it. It was in the legislature and everything. Greg's wife voted for it. Okay, way to go,
Thank you.
Diane. Okay.
Appreciate that.
All right.
Yes. So the Housing Incentive Fund, well, that is one of the biggest programs that the Housing and Planning Development Division administers, and it is a state fund that goes towards developing affordable rental housing for essential service workers, Main Street employees, and those households on fixed income. And what the Housing Incentive Fund can do is it will provide equity into a project up to 30% of the total development costs, and that equity is structured as a soft loan, 0% interest. And what it'll do is it can bring down the total development costs of the project, and that way the rents can be decreased. So it provides affordable rental housing for the state.
Well, Joel's got a question.
Sounds like big government to me, Dave.
Does it?
Sounds like big government to me.
Okay. So how do you respond to that one, Jennifer?
Well,
Legislature created this.
the legislature, it is legislatively authorized. 2011 was the first year that it was authorized, and 2013, throughout the entire inception of the program, we have taken $49 million and stuck it into development to create 1,500 new units for the state of North Dakota. So I think that's a pretty big deal. And how the fund works.
Yeah, there.
Now I'll get to the next part.
Here
comes your answer, Joel.
So
Feel the thunder.
the Housing Incentive Fund is a two-part funding program. One part is with a state tax contributions, and the other part is typically a general fund appropriation. For the Housing Incentive Fund 3, which was just authorized, we have the authority to issue $30 million in state income tax credits, and then we have a $5 million transfer from Bank of North Dakota Profits for a total of $35 million. And there's an additional $5 million that if Bank of North Dakota hits certain profits, it's possible we could get that in 2016 as well. So $35 million right now we have available. Contributions, what is a contribution? It is a state income tax contribution, an income tax person with a liability will give us a contribution in exchange for a dollar-for-dollar state income tax credit on their tax return.
So, Joel, you can contribute $1 and
you'll get $1 on your tax return, yes.
Okay, so is now how much of the fund comes from
30 million. 30 million.
Of the how much?
35.
Right. So 30 million of this fund is driven by really private parties or entities making
directing where their tax dollars are going to go.
Yeah,
and basically you're given the authority to issue them a tax credit when they participate in the fund.
Correct.
And to that credit, I know one of the big contributors a couple of years ago here was U.S. Bank.
Yeah,
yes, U.S. Bank and Gate City Bank.
Just as an example, of entities with local presences that actually gave pretty significant dollar amounts into that. And so the advantage for those banks then is that they got a state income tax credit for the money that they put into this fund, which is then distributed for the sake of developing multifamily housing.
Right. They were going to. They had to pay their taxes one way or the other. In this way, they basically get to direct where it goes.
Yes, contributors to the fund can target their monies to any project or community that they wish, or they can put it into a general fund part of it that gets distributed proportionally to projects that need it.
And then the $5 million, for sure, that's coming from the Bank of North Dakota. Again, however you want to look at the Bank of North Dakota, but it is directly from their profits. It's not a general fund appropriation necessarily. It's coming from the Bank of North Dakota's profits, and you can look at that as whether that's government money or not. I don't know. It's what you want to think of it, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I think that's what I wanted to point out to the listener too. Is I really want to get to the idea that the majority of the fund is coming from participation in private entities, for example, banks and other, and just private individuals can also. Yes. Utilize this.
Yeah, the second fund, which the 2013-15 fund, we had $20 million contributions to to get, and it was fully capitalized in 8 months. So $20 million of state income tax contributions was raised in 8 months. We had 448 contributors. A majority of them were financial institutions, but there was many individuals that an average of $13,000 in individual contribution. So,
do you know, Dave, did the financial institutions that participate in it, did they get CRE credit for it?
They have the potential to have CRA credits with that. So yes, there is a second benefit for some banks, but they need to talk to their compliance officer for that.
Yeah. So the individual contributions, the average was $13,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That people put in. So large chunk of money individuals are.
And we
putting
had
into
as
this.
low as $500.
No,
anybody who wanted to support
the
the
last
fund.
go around after the 2013 legislative session started, the fund was done in, like you said, 8 months.
Yes.
And you actually had to return money to people.
We did. We had to return nearly $1 million.
Yeah. Greg got money back. Okay.
Well, I think one of the important things to when you're talking about a good government solution to a problem, when you have housing issues, and for example, especially low income housing, and just to talk about the importance of this program real quick, and then let Jennifer get more information out about it here, but to help people understand why these solutions are important and why the agency, North Dakota Housing, is so important, is that fundamentally, who's going to bear the burden for the cost of housing problems anyway?
Individuals, institutions across the state.
The communities.
The communities.
The communities, which are eventually, when the communities are overtaxed by housing problems due to lack of affordable housing, who do they turn to solve it?
The state.
The state.
Yeah.
And so here's a great proactive solution where you entice private individuals into creating a fund to incentivize a solution to provide housing for people who otherwise are not going to have it if investors can't find the yield they need through the natural market. And prevent the problem from happening, which is just going to wind up resulting in somebody coming to Diane Larson and saying, we need money in Bismarck because we've got 1,000 people we can't house.
Yeah. Well, and, I think we'll talk a little bit more, and I don't know if we have time here, but the cost of what it's to build an apartment building today, if you were going to put up a 24 or 48 unit building, and what that costs per unit and what is needed for rent. So if I'm just going to rent that in the private sector and take out a loan and put in my own equity, what's that going to cause me to charge for rent, right?
Right. So right now we are in the process of accepting applications for the Housing Incentive Fund. They're due on May 29th. So developers are working on their applications, get them in. But as part of our assistance that we can provide, we'll provide technical assistance to those applicants and have a review of their application and give them pointers as to how to better score, because it is a competitively scored application process. That being said, we've looked at about 9 or so projects throughout the state, and average cost about $175 per unit, so $175,000 per unit to build. You're looking at a 24-unit apartment building, that's $4.2 million. And
you said you were gonna. We weren't supposed to make you do math today.
Yeah, I have some notes. Yes, I'm gonna do some math,
but
it's
do that in your head?
I'm not gonna do it in my head.
Right.
I've got it written down. So,
okay.
Anyway, so $4.2 million, and traditional financing, operating costs of a project for an annual operating expenses, you're looking at $1,400 or more a month just to break even on that and pay your debt service and everything needed. So $1,400, who can afford that? Somebody who makes about $27 an hour.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
We were talking about that before we came in, the average wage and what's the average cost.
And that's the real hardship, is that it's folks that are working in our service industries and retail industries making $10, $15 an hour, that being able to afford housing.
So just to simplify this, hopefully, the way the fund works is you're putting in this equity into the project, so that the guy that's putting the 24 unit in for 4.2, he can drive the cost down on some of those units.
What our equity will do is it'll reduce the amount of mortgage debt that developer needs to have, and so therefore his annual operating expenses are lower. and he can
Yeah.
thus lower his
And
rents.
they're just agreeing to rent a certain number of those 24 units at these lower rent levels. right?
Exactly. HIF can do up to 30% of total development costs, not to exceed $3 million. In exchange for that, we need 30% of
Okay.
at minimum, 30% of the units
Okay.
to be restricted.
We come back, we'll talk a little bit more about rents and what it costs people to afford the rents in North Dakota, et cetera, with Jennifer Henderson. This is the Dakota Housing Network.
Right now it's 66.
Our own radio station. Not Fargo, not the Twin Cities. Proud to be Bismarck and Mandan's own Super Talk 1270.
All right, we're back on the Dakota Housing Network. Dave Floor, Joe Sheehan, Greg Larson, and Jennifer Henderson. We're talking multifamily housing today. So we got three single-family guys, dumb single-family guys, asking the
So
smart
when do we talk about bunkhouses?
multifamily. Yeah, maybe 2 weeks or something. Next week, Greg, you want to talk about bunkhouses?
Let's talk about
Are you on
bunkhouses.
next week?
Sure.
Yeah.
How
okay.
high can you stack them?
Okay, I got one for you, Joe. You can't make this stuff up. I think I brought this up before, but this is just too good. It came up again in the news. Fraud enforcement official arrested for mortgage fraud.
Love it. Love it.
The director of investigations for the state of Connecticut's Department of Social Services was arrested on a federal criminal complaint charging him with wire fraud in connection with the submission of a fraudulent application for a personal mortgage modification. You just can't make that up. Fraud official
just can't
charged with fraud.
make it
That's good stuff right there. Okay, Connecticut. I'm glad it was in Connecticut, not North Dakota, but yeah. All right, Jennifer, where do we leave off? We were talking about the cost to build an apartment building in North Dakota right now.
It's expensive.
Has it come down at all? Do you think this year? You've gotten some applications in for the HIF fund now.
Yep, had a few pre-looks,
Yep.
and I would say that it's increased again.
Increased
Yep.
again. Okay.
Yep. Since 2013, because of course that's when we were taking
Yeah.
applications, and so
Okay.
those estimates are 2 years old now. But
Okay.
but yeah, our average is 174. It's still 186 plus in the Watford Williston area. So
Okay.
yeah, you're still having that Bakken effect out in that western
Okay.
side.
So $186,000 per unit in the Watford City area, which is above just before the break we were talking about.
So their rents need to be
175.
higher.
So their rents are even higher than that 1,400.
Exactly.
Okay. Now you have some statistics here on
It's
what it
tough to make a dollar.
costs. We already knew that.
Tough to make a dollar.
You have some statistics on what it costs an hourly wage needed to afford a single unit, an affordable single unit, and then what's the rent on an affordable single? You tell us what you got here.
Okay, yeah, I've got some pretty interesting facts. The $14.40 is an hourly wage that is needed for a single adult to afford affordable 2-bedroom apartment in North Dakota, and that is based on an affordable rate of $749, which is HUD's fair market rents right now. So $14.40 an hour, $749. You can't find very many $749 apartments.
What do we know what our average wage in North Dakota is? I don't know that number.
You know, I have an older statistic. 2012, the median household income was $53,000 in
Okay.
2012. But
Okay, so Greg's getting out his calculator.
It's probably a
He'll
little
have it
better.
for us soon. Okay, so that's maybe gone up since 2012, probably, but not a whole lot.
and of course that's median, so that means there's several that
Yeah.
are underneath that.
Right, absolutely, yeah, okay. So really, then the goal of the HIF fund is to get this down to where people can afford to get these rents down closer to that $750 mark, if possible,
If possible.
but somewhere in there. Now, with the HIF projects that you do, you look for it's targeted towards certain people that they can rent to, right? Essential service workers is
Yes.
the term.
So the legislature sets a priority for our housing incentive fund for essential service worker units. And what that is units that are designated for people employed by the city, the county, school districts, medical facilities, long-term care facilities, and such. So
Yeah, so this is really for the working
the
folks
the
of
working
North Dakota.
Yes, you know, one of the issues was that schools were having a hard time recruiting teachers. They were building, in Watford City, for example, they were putting mobile homes in their practice fields so that their teachers could live there. And what we're trying to do is get the schools out of
Yeah, because
property management.
School didn't have any choice.
Exactly.
They were actually buying places for mobile homes or whatever or houses for their people to live in.
Because their teachers couldn't get anybody to come work for them because they couldn't find a place to live. So.
Greg's got the average.
$53,000 annual salary for household, which assumes 2 workers. That's $12.80.
$12.80 an hour.
Yes, sir.
Okay, per person. So that's
And,
below the $14.40.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've got Department of Numbers, whoever that is, reported that the census for 2014 put North Dakota at 55,759.
Okay, so pretty close. Yeah.
So the 2013 income reported in 2014
Yeah.
was 55,759. So up
Okay.
slightly.
Up slightly. Yep. Okay. So anyway, but the HIF fund, it really is geared towards the people you want in your community: police officers, firefighters, teachers, not doctors, but CNAs.
Nurses, CNAs is.
CNAs, yeah.
Hey, wait, some of these people are people we want. We just don't want to need them.
We don't want to need them, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to need police officers and firemen.
Well, I'd prefer not to need a nurse. Really, yeah. But we need them, yeah.
So that was the first priority of the fund. But second priority is
Okay.
just Main Street employees, those that are working in the retail sector, daycare providers. All of those are considered Main Street employees, and their incomes are well under the $14.40 for the most part in many parts of the state.
Mortgage loan originators.
Yeah, Joe, that's right. Yeah.
Don't fit you.
So, what are you saying? You don't pay too well over there, or what? No. You're going to have your whole crew talking.
That's why I've been trying to figure out how to get mobile homes in the park for my.
There's a big parking lot by your office. You could put up portables.
So get that ordinance done.
You get Randy and Travis and everybody get in there.
Or Randy Travis.
Randy Travis can go in there. Yeah. Do they get that a lot? Those two guys, Randy Travis.
We say that all the we say it all the time by accident.
Yeah.
I think because it just naturally
He has
flows
two
out
of
of our
his
memory.
originators, Randy and Travis.
Yeah. So
Randy
they're right in
Travis,
offices next to each other. So we go Randy Travis.
Yeah. Okay. Whoever answers, that's who you.
That's who we
yeah,
get.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, Jennifer. Let's see. What else do we want to talk about? You got any other stats you want to bring up on the economics of affordable rent? Anything interesting there?
Oh, I don't think I've got anything left on that.
Okay, all right.
But
Okay, so contributions to the
there
fund.
we go. That's what I wanted to go.
Okay, contributions to the fund. I want to contribute. This is a great idea. I want to contribute. What do I do, and when can I fork it over to you?
So $30 million is our goal.
I don't
and
have that much.
We are going to
He's
collect
just
it
short.
dollar
I'm
by
short.
dollar. July 1st is when we can start accepting those contributions, and they can be mailed to North Dakota Housing Finance Agency.
Okay.
You can find lots of information, including frequently asked questions, what contributors need to know information on our website, ndhfa.org.
Okay.
Click on the Development and Contributors under the Housing Incentive Fund page.
Okay. So get your money in early, because if it went like last time, that's all going to be used up by the end of the year.
8 months last time to raise $20 million, and it happened July 2nd. So, I mean, not July, January 2nd.
Yeah.
A lot of our contributions, of course, come in November, December, because they have to be used in the year that you make the contribution, but can be carried over for up to 10 years.
That's a good point.
Yes.
But this year Christmas is in July. So
Yes, so contribute
go ahead
early.
and contribute early.
We will take it now, please.
Yeah, okay.
July 1st.
Okay. So how does that carryover work? So I give you $10,000 and my tax liability was only $5,000 this year, then I can carry
it
that
over for up to 10
the
years,
next
and so
year.
you just
Okay.
keep taking a credit on your tax return.
So I could give $30 million and then just carry it over.
Right, but
Okay.
that funds will come out of your account, so.
I'll work harder. I'll earn that extra dollar so I can just fund it all. Yeah. Okay.
But what you do receive from us is a tax credit certificate, and that is what you would use for your tax return. So
Okay,
it's
so you
pretty
just
easy that way.
take
Clip
that
it
and
in.
attach it and-
Yep. There's a special form for the Housing Incentive Fund that the State Tax Department has out there, so it's really quite easy process.
Okay. So work with all the electronic stuff. Is that in there? Like if you bought TurboTax or something like that, is that in the?
I don't know
The
the
form?
answer to that.
I bet you it is.
You would think so.
Because I saw the question.
They're
I
required
saw
to
the
get.
question on mine
Really?
in the tax thing. Yeah, it was in there. So So even if you do it yourself, you tax yourself, they've got that in there. All right.
Easy.
Okay. Let's see what else we got for Jim. How much time we got left?
You had 4 minutes to the
4
break.
minutes, all right,
4 minutes
cool.
to the break,
All
and then we got another
Very good.
segment. What about do we have any? Like, I'd love to hear about some of these
let's-
projects.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, like, what are some examples of some projects that have served some of the areas out there? And
Let's talk about
Love
the
Kildare manufacturing.
Kildare. Yes, the one that was for their workers.
So the Kildare manufacturing, that particular property, I don't have the information with me as far as how many units it was, but it was a manufacturing company in Kildare that developed their an apartment unit, and mainly so that their employees had an affordable place to live.
Yeah, I think it was
it's-
24 units, wasn't it?
It that sounds about right. Yeah.
So that was a good one. Now, and these have not been focused necessarily just on Western North Dakota. It's been, most of it's been in Western North Dakota.
Yes,
Okay.
a majority of the funds have gone out into the western communities, and that's because of the need for the essential service workers was so great out in those communities. So naturally, that's what happened. But we have projects located in Jamestown, New Rockford, Fargo, Bismarck. I think Mandan as well. Yes, Mandan, Collins Place in Mandan, of course.
Okay.
That was a really nice project downtown Mandan that is for workforce.
Okay.
So.
So where's that one located on? Corner of Collins and Main?
Yes.
Right there?
Yeah.
Okay, right next to the new American Bank Center building.
Right
the
across
street.
from that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
So
building.
you can drive by and see one.
You can drive by and see one.
Locally.
And another really great project that we've done in the Bismarck area is, of course, Independence Point, which is Pride Incorporated's
Okay.
apartment buildings for disabled individuals. So that's a
Okay.
great project because, of course, individuals that are on Social Security income, seniors and disabled individuals, they have the hardest time finding places to rent.
Yeah, okay. Have you done any other ones like that? Or is
As
that-
far
is
as
like Pride?
no,
Is
that
it-
is our
that's the
only one
like that?
right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you've also rehabbed some places. This isn't just new construction. There's
It
been some
isn't.
rehab done.
Yeah, there has been a few rehabs done. Notably a project in Williston. It's central at Legacy, in that it was the renovation of the junior high building into senior apartments. So the income targeting in that particular units is 30% AMI to 60% AMI, which is very low and extremely low incomed senior individuals, 55 plus. So
Okay.
I believe that particular building is completely full already.
Okay.
Just opened its doors last July.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah.
We will be back after the break. Talk to Jennifer Anderson some more about multifamily housing in North Dakota.
Jojo lived his home in Tucson, Arizona, awesome California grass.
Right now, it's 70 degrees.
Get the app called Radio Pup for your iPhone and take us everywhere you go. Bismarck and Mandan's own Super Talk 1270.
All
And
right.
we're back.
We're back.
They keep
Jim brought us
bringing
back
us
again.
back.
We like Jim. He brings us back.
Stand by you.
You stand by us.
He does.
He's the man. All right. All right, we're back on the Dakota Housing Network. Dave Floor, Joe Sheehan, Greg Larson, and our guest, Jennifer Henderson from North Dakota Housing. Talking about multifamily housing. And, Joe, you have a tough question.
Well, geez, oil's down. Drilling's stopped. There's no need for more housing, is there? It's all taken care of.
That's a question I bet you people are asking, just like you.
Big
You're
deal.
right on top of stuff, Joe.
That's me.
Yeah.
It's,
So what?
my
Jennifer,
gut's
what do you
better
think?
than any facts.
Okay, there you go.
I've seen what you put in that gut. I'm not sure.
Well, I guess to start, there has been a lot of articles out there
Yeah.
in the newspaper that rents are decreasing, vacancies are up, everybody's trying to lease up right now. And the fact of the matter is that we're still seeing vacancy rates at 4.9% statewide. 7% is considered healthy. The rents that are decreasing, I read an article that talked about Minot, Bismarck, Grand Forks area. They're renting at $1,400 a month. So again, that's not affordable to a lot of folks that need those units. So that's one need. The other piece of it is as we talked about before, it costs $175,000 a unit for a little 24 unit, and
They're not
you
going down.
can't decrease your rents below $1,400 on those. That is your market there. So you need to get some resources in there. You know, one of the uses of the Housing Incentive Fund is buy down of debt. And so we can take an existing market rate unit, put in a little bit of an equity injection to take out some of that mortgage and therefore get those rents lower. So that is a good opportunity for those already built units out there. Some other information is, you know, our statewide housing needs assessment that was completed in 2012 showed that we needed an average of 3,000 affordable units per year for the next till 2025, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was. But now, to be fair, that was done
2010.
Yeah, so it was done
Prior.
based on what the oil business was doing at that time. So that number
It may be lower,
less,
a little bit. But that being said, you look at the Housing Incentive Fund for 2013-15 biennium, the number of affordable units was 770 or so.
Yeah.
So, I
You're
mean,
creating
we're
way
not,
below.
we're just not
So-
keeping up with even a more conservative number.
Yeah.
So you're saying it was 3,000 affordable units needed
Affordable.
in the state. So,
Noth-
so like for example, if a 50 unit building goes up, not all those are going to be, even if they're participating in this, not all those are going to be affordable.
Correct.
Only
A portion.
are going to be affordable.
Quarter,
A
maybe.
quarter. So if every 100 units that go up, 25 of those would be affordable if they're participating in this fund. So, I mean, 3,000, even if it was half, 1,500 divided by 25 units, that's a lot of places that got to go up across the state to keep up with the need.
So, and you since 2011 when this started, you've done how many?
1,500 total units. Total
Okay.
units.
So
even
we're
if you-
way behind.
Correct.
Yeah, you really, there is a lot of catch up that had to be done.
Yes.
So, yeah.
We need to build schools with yards specifically to put manufactured houses in for their teachers.
Yeah.
No.
Well, the legislature was really clear. They don't want schools to be in the business of being landlords.
No kidding. I mean, you start when you this show a lot of this show is about the numbers behind the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
It's to try to help the average person on the street who doesn't have time to read the assessment that's done, you know, on behalf of the agency to try to get a picture of the scope of the problem, right?
Right.
And so you think about in 2010, we were projecting that, and oil did better than expected from the 2010 projections.
Yes.
So the economy expanded even faster than what the original 2010
absolutely.
were. So at that time, you're saying, hey, we need 3,000 affordable units a year being brought into the market. Now, in terms of what we can track, we had 1,500 total.
Mm-hmm.
So we're 10.
Well,
hold on. How many
three times five.
First, if
I'll
you
take
could,
off my shoes.
if you could count my fingers for me, Greg, so I could see how much
We
you
need
had to do it.
15,000 roughly.
Right.
since
And
then.
so we're still behind. We're behind by nearly 15,000,
yeah.
which
Yeah.
which explains why you wind up doing things like putting mobile homes
In a practice field.
in a practice field.
exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
it just it almost you start looking at the overwhelming numbers of that. What other solutions are you going to have except for? I guess that's something I would. Between the two of you, you guys are involved in these conversations as we kind of bring the show to an end. Well, I mean, that's why I said it tongue in cheek. But when a problem is so overwhelming that resisting it seems futile, it almost seems like the better thing to do is embrace. So should we use the HIF fund to build schools with housing in them? I mean, and I know you're shaking your head no,
Yeah.
Jennifer, and the legislature, of course, said no to that.
Yeah.
But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's almost like saying, well, no, we'll stop that tsunami. Yeah, well, no, we can do it. No, you can't. And when I'm looking at a shortage of over this years of 15,000, can we solve this problem through things like the housing fund helps? But what's the real what are the real conversations about solutions? Obviously, you hear this from the legislature too. But so I'm going to step back and let the three of you educate me on this.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, yeah.
Well, the truth is, the farther ahead we get, the behinder we go. So the problem isn't going away. In the for-profit market, no investor is going to invest to lose money. And that's the beauty of this project, because it allows them to do some things they want to do and allows them to afford it.
It's the proverbial dent.
It's the proverbial dent, and there's no Fed money for this, and the Fed money that is there for housing is for those folks who absolutely just need housing and can't afford anything. Get them out of a tent in the park. So there's got to be a lot more creative solutions thought up and brought up, and unfortunately, things kind of move slowly. But it's going to be tough, and that makes manufactured housing kind of an attractive thing. But there again, it's land, it's infrastructure. Those things can't be done inexpensively anymore. I know a couple of manufactured housing developers, and they have a hard time keeping things under that $170,000 price tag when you put the house and all the infrastructure under the lot and all of that. And so
because you're building a little city, you got to pay.
You're building a little city, you got to put in the sewer, the water, and all that.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of issues, and it's going to take some creative thinking to fix them.
Well, and I think with the legislature putting, the surge funding forward and getting money to the counties and the cities to do with what they need to make their community function appropriately, whether it be for infrastructure or housing, whatever it is. I think that was the point of the money going that direction, so that they could make those choices and what's going to work best at that local level.
Yeah. And there's, Greg, do you think there's some fear about we don't want to get ahead of ourselves and build too much or do too much, because then if things don't pick up or slow down more, then where we're left with,
No.
None of that was played into it.
Tate Simblick, one of the city councilmen in Wilson, is a very good friend of mine.
Yep.
And I talked to him about this slowdown. I said, "Are you guys afraid of it?" He said, "No, we're welcoming it. It gives us a chance to catch a breath and catch up. But we won't be. Oil prices will return, and we'll still be racing to stay caught up." So I don't think anybody's afraid of that. We're still producing 1.2 million barrels a day. I mean, income is there. What we're not doing is exploring for more oil, and that's going to happen.
That's one thing to remember is there's a lot of wells that have been drilled that aren't being pumped.
Well, I can't remember several hundred. I'm going to go out on a limb, and maybe I'm right, but I think there's 600 wells drilled that have not been fracked.
Yeah.
Well,
so now you have right, and you may not have people exploring out on the fringes of the Bakken where they were before, but there's still a lot of wells to drill. Yeah.
But oil aside, Fargo and Bismarck are doing good in manufacturing.
Yes.
In expanded government initiatives and agriculture. And I mean, housing needs aren't just in the West, and they're not just expanding in the West. This is a statewide problem. Grand Forks just got increased funding from for drones or whatever it was. I can't remember what it was up there. There's a problem everywhere.
Where did your applications come in so far?
So far, it is statewide. We did get a project in Fargo that submitted a pre-look. Mandan and Beulah even submitted a pre-look, so it is statewide. And you bring up a really good point as far as everything being statewide. And I have some March numbers from the Fargo metro area. They were looking at an overall vacancy rate of 4.5 in Fargo. With all of that construction that's gone online in the last year, they're still at 4.5% vacancy.
Plus, they have one.
Are you hiring but not sure where to
find? I just read that the other day.
Well, and NDSU's profile has risen, that has increased enrollments out there, which has increased demand, and student activity, which has also had an impact on the economy. Crime is up, so the penitentiary's doing good.
Yeah.
I mean, it just. But so I just is there anything out there that's being proposed as a way to stem the tide? That
I'm aware of several things that are in the works. One of them that we have absolutely no time to talk about is land grant housing, which has been very successful in the Wyoming oil fields. And I know of a couple of developers that are looking at that, and that's a whole nother subject for a whole nother day. But
I think the
really been involved.
maybe the private sector will come through with something ideas to work, and then if they need the state's help with it, they'll ask for it.
Well, maybe that'll be here with me next week.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk
Talk
about
that.
Dot
Yes,
was
we're on the
really
committee
involved.
together.
Yep.
Yeah.
When she was with the chamber, she was really
Yeah, that's an idea to talk about then. Yeah. Okay.
A special
All
program.
right. So, Jim, we're about done. All right, Jennifer, people want to contribute to the Housing Incentive Fund. How do they do it?
July 1st, send their payments to North Dakota Housing. Go online, ndhfa.org for all contributing information.
This is a great solution. This is a big piece to providing affordable housing.
All right. Thanks
for tuning in,
everybody.
folks.
Thank you.
This has been the Dakota Housing Network on Super Talk 1270. Join us again next Thursday morning at 11 a.m. The Dakota Housing Network is heard weekly right here on Super Talk 1270 and online at supertalk1270.com.
ABC News, Super Talk 1270. Accurate news, stimulating talk. This is KLXX AM, Mandan, Bismarck.